Hey everyone, welcome back to Studying with Stephanie. We're back this week after a little break from the 4th of July holiday, so I hope that you had a safe and fun time with your loved ones. Today we're going to discuss the spinothalamic tract, and I'm going to explain to you how to conceptualize these spinal cord pathways, because I know they can get a little bit confusing and hard to memorize what each pathway does. When we're thinking of a spinal cord pathway, I want you to think of a delivery truck driver. So essentially at the beginning of the route, the delivery driver picks up its packages. On its route, it has to drop off packages, which is going to be what we call a synapse. During the synapse, that driver is then going to merge onto a different road and go onto its next route to deliver its next package. Each part of the spinal cord will synapse in different places. So each truck driver is going to have its own route depending on what it's carrying. And this is a super important thing to understand, because when it comes to injuries to the spinal cord, we're going to want to know where those deliveries are taking place and what it's going to affect. So the spinothalamic tract is an anterior lateral pathway, meaning there's an anterior aspect and a lateral aspect. The anterior aspect controls crude touch, so just generic touch that you can't really pinpoint, and pressure sensations. So any injury to the anterior part of the spinal cord can affect the anterior spinothalamic tract. The lateral spinothalamic tract is going to control pain and temperature sensations. All right, so let's get into this a little bit more. Okay, so let's talk about the spinothalamic tract's pathway and its delivery stops. So the truck gets loaded at the skin. That is where we're getting that initial signal. This initial signal goes through what we call the first order neuron, and its first delivery is going to be in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. So at the dorsal horn, we have our first drop off. That's pretty early on. Once that signal gets taken from our skin into our spinal cord, it's going to drop off a package. So it's going to synapse in that dorsal horn. Now, depending on the area, it can synapse 1 or 2 levels above the actual nerve root or the entrance destination. So it can go up 1 or 2 floors before that package is dropped off. Then the second order neuron is going to take its hold, and it's going to travel through the anterior white commissure to go to the opposite side of the spinal cord. So again, package was dropped off in the dorsal horn. Now the truck driver has to get on the road, go through essentially this tunnel called the anterior white commissure to get to the other side of the street. On the other side of that street, that truck driver is now going to go up the path of the spinothalamic tract. So it's going to go through its pathways up the spine until it reaches the thalamus in the brain. So the thalamus, spinal cord, thalamic, thalamus. So its second drop off then is in the thalamus of the brain. And so once it gets dropped off in the thalamus, then that truck driver again is going to get back in its car, go to its final destination into the actual primary somatosensory cortex of the brain, so that signal can now get read. So essentially the signal gets picked up by the truck driver, it goes along its route, it stops in the brain, and then their manager is there, and their manager is going over their drop-off slip and saying, hey, you did this right, good job, let's now respond and give you something to take back. But we're going to send you down a different route to do that. So the ascending tract is going to always start at the skin in the periphery, and it's going to go through the spinal cord up to the brain so that the brain can figure out what the body is trying to tell us and then respond accordingly if it needs to. So again, that delivery truck drops off through different areas of the spinal cord, and then the initial route that the delivery driver truck takes is going to be the primary neuron, and then a secondary neuron, and a tertiary. So it's going to drop off and get on different routes throughout its passage through the spinal cord. Now, when we're talking about spinal cord injury, we did this in the previous video. When we have injury to the lateral aspect of the spine, such as Brown-Sequard syndrome, we are going to have affected pain and temperature sensation because it's going to hit that lateral spinothalamic tract, which carries the pain and the temperature sensation. But since that pathway crosses over pretty quickly, like I said, we drop off that first package in the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, and then that truck driver gets en route to cross over through the anterior white commissure to the other side of the spinal cord. It goes through that tunnel, it crosses over, and now we know that when we have something occur to the lateral spinothalamic tract, we're going to lose pain and temperature sensation on the opposite side of the body because where that crossover is happening now is getting blocked. That road is closed, there's construction. It's not going to allow that pathway to be taken anymore. So that pain and temperature sense can't come through from the other side because it crossed over so quickly. So that's the spinothalamic tract in a nutshell. It's so much simpler to kind of try and conceptualize this as a delivery truck driver on a freeway. That delivery truck driver is going to have different drops to drop off, and again, we call this a synapse, and it's going to take a different route depending on what the package is in the truck. So when we're talking about pain and temperature sense, we're going to be talking about that lateral spinothalamic tract. That's the route that truck driver is taking. It's carrying pain and temperature. When we're talking about the anterior spinothalamic tract, that is carrying crude touch and pressure sensations. So that's going to go on a different route through a different part of the spinal cord. Thanks so much for watching Studying with Stephanie, and have a great day.